While everyone's been talking about the quarterback position, it's the cornerback position that also is going to be very important to this Steelers offseason. Two cornerbacks are hitting free agency this year from the Steelers, just like how last year Steven Nelson and Mike Hilton did for the Steelers. But should they keep one of them, both of them? Should they go big in free agency and get someone to replace them? We'll talk about Joe Haden and Ahkello WItherspoon a lot in this Locked On Steelers episode. Also, with Pressley Harvin talking to the Steelers media, he told a very touching story about what his year has been like, losing his father and his grandmother in just a span of 2 weeks. His journey, his fight to get through this season, to deal with that, to deal with his mental health while still coming in a playoff game and punting well. We're going to talk about that, his impact, and what his outlook for the rest of his time with the Steelers should be. And then, of course, we're picking all the divisional rounds of the NFL playoffs and all the games this weekend. Of course, joining me is Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. I'm Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things of the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button. If you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button on YouTube to get all of our daily content. And remember, if you want to support us even further, give us a shout out on Apple Podcasts by giving a 5-star review with a positive comment, and you'll get a special shout out at the end of the show. Joining me as always on Fridays is Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. Jenna, how you been?
I am all in favor of renaming Friday to Jenna's Day, something along those lines. I'd love it. We could do that for sure. But I'm great. I'm so glad to be here, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing just great. And I know Steelers fans wish they had a game this week, but listen, I think we're both sitting here like we are glad to at least like take one things off our plate and get to look at some other things. But one thing that the Steelers, we knew going into this offseason was going to be important is what's going to happen at the cornerback position. Because for most of the 2010s, the cornerback position was a bane of the team. They couldn't find consistent ones. They tried drafting there. Sanquez Golson never even played. R.D. Burns didn't work out. There were a lot of questions that just never got answered. But when they signed Joe Haden, they drafted Cam Sutton, they signed Steven Nelson. All of that seemed to go away for a few years. But now here they are at a crossroads where Cam Sutton is on the roster next year, but you don't have too many other reliable players at the position on that roster. And two guys who played well this year and were reliable, Joe Haden and Ahkello WItherspoon, are set to be unrestricted free agents for this upcoming period that's coming in March. Now, both could resign with the team if they want, but the question is going to be with the Steelers cap money, do they want to spend, chunks of it on two cornerbacks, or they want to go get one of the guys that is out there, J.C. Jackson, who arguably is the best cornerback in the NFL when you've seen his weight, the way he's played the past couple of years. He's a guy, he might be available in free agency. He might be someone that you want to pay big dollars for, and that kind of puts you in a better position. But Jenna, you did a great story on Ahkello WItherspoon and how he's gelled in with the team, how he's grown, and what his journey's been like to become a good contributor to that cornerback room. What is your sense of how quickly has he been able to find a place in this team, and if it's something that the team is going to be like, hey, we need that back again next year?
It's so intriguing. Witherspoon's story in general is just so fascinating to me. But, he was traded here in September from the Seahawks. It was like, what, a third-round pick, a fifth-round? No,
I think it was a fifth-round pick.
Fifth round. I don't know why I'm thinking third. It was a fifth-round pick because then people were saying, did the Steelers overpay? I mean, he didn't play. He didn't start until week 11. And then you saw this consistency from him. You saw this playmaking ability. He's, like I said, he's so fascinating in so many ways, but he has this incredible mentality where he's like, I want to be the best cornerback in the league. I'm going to do everything I can to get there. But he does it in a way where you can see him working hard. And it's not this like cockiness. It's not this, oh, I'm the best, la-di-da-di-da type thing. He legitimately wants to be, and he does all he can to work towards that. I think you can, his work ethic, to me, that was something that really, really stuck out. And for a guy who the three teams he's been with, granted, he never actually played a real game with the Seahawks, but the three teams in the league he's been on, the 49ers, the Seahawks, and now the Steelers, or most recently, obviously the Steelers, they're all such defensively minded teams. And I asked him when we did our one-on-one interview ahead of the Kansas City game, I said, what's different about this Steelers defense? You played in three systems that are very defensively minded. What's different about the Steelers? And he kind of just said, it's so nice to be able to play freely, in the sense the way that the Steelers defense plays, where you have a system, but you're allowed to find your success within the system. And you could sense he really liked that. He really enjoyed that. Now, what's going to be next is kind of hard to tell with him, because at the end of the day, for all these guys, as much as they want to be one place or the other, it does come down to a business decision. And if there's another franchise that he could end up going to that's offering him more money, offering him a really competitive team in a way, for him, I couldn't argue with him saying, hey, I'm going to go there. But at the same time, he talked about the bonds that he's made with the guys in this group in a very short period of time. Again, when he's only starting week 11, there's not a ton of time here for him to kind of do that. But you could really just sense the way he grew with this defense. I think it would be a really good idea for them to keep him if they could. I know this might be a little, I don't want to say controversial in a sense, but
fine.
if I'm going with him or Haden, if you are, handcuffing me and say I have to pick one, I don't know. I kind of might lean towards Witherspoon because of where his ceiling could be, what he could do for this team. Does he still need to work out some things? Of course, he even said that. Not that Haden is a bad option, but, I just look at kind of the differences between the two. Haden's such a veteran leader, and that's a huge thing. But I think Witherspoon could be that in a couple of years as well.
He could be, and that's the thing, is that when you look at their times, Witherspoon's 26. This is his prime. For him to play at the level that he did for the Steelers. And by the way, looking at their numbers, Witherspoon, in only playing he played in 10 games for the Steelers this year. He played in 268 coverage snaps. He was targeted 35 times, allowing 17 catches. That's less than 50% of the time he was targeted, allowing a reception. Only 266 yards. He had 5 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and only allowed 1 touchdown in the season. That's an NFL passer rating of 48 when going his way. Joe Haden, he allowed 5 touchdowns, but of course played 446 coverage snaps, so he was out there a lot more. He allowed 37 catches on 55 targets for 407 yards. Those are actually all decent numbers. And he also had 6 pass breakups on the season, but no interceptions. But also, one thing that I think that, like you brought up, Joe Haden's value is his leadership and what he brings to the table. And we've both been at practice where he leads that group in a lot of their talks, and just they're warming up, who's pushing the conversation, who's the guy that everyone looks to be like, what do we do here? Joe Haden's been that guy, and he's been that guy for a while, and that's not something to just overlook when it comes to the impact. And also, being in the right place, knowing situational football. The Steelers might not beat the Tennessee Titans if Joe Haden doesn't come in and make that tackle 1 yard, like a half a yard shy of a first down on 4th down. So that's huge stuff that he brings. But I feel Witherspoon, with the way that he played, there's a bit of promise there that it's like, man, if you could bring him back. Now, mind you look at Ahkello WItherspoon's his career. This year he counted $1.5 million against the cap for the Steelers. He has a void year in his contract that's gonna run that out. He had a 1 year, $4 million with the Seahawks that was fully guaranteed before coming to the Steelers. If the Steelers could sign him for around that kind of money, for maybe $6, $7, $8 million a year, that might be worth the shot just to see what he's like, and then still maybe spend bigger money on another cornerback that you want to bring in. Now, I think it's tough to bring back in both. Joe Haden's going to be 33 next year, and he's a heck of a leader. And especially at I think he cost the Steelers he cost the Steelers like $15.5 million in cap space last year. That's a lot to recoup unless you bring that down significantly. So I feel you on Witherspoon. But the question I think for the Steelers is, do they want to keep one of them, or do they want to say, hey, free agency, let's just go get one of the best guys out there?
Yeah, and that is going to be, I mean, I feel like we have so many off-season questions for what this team's going to do, but that is a very, very intriguing route. It's where the Steelers going to go with this. Do they want to keep one? Do they want to go make a splash? How do they want to handle this? Knowing that your defense with the guys that you have on it that you know are guaranteed to be here next year, aka guys like TJ Watt, more likely than not, Cam Hayward. I've seen some, is he retiring things? I'm like, let's pump the brakes on that, people. Like, I would say 99.99% no. But guys like that, there's a window of opportunity here for this defense. So they know that they obviously have to build around. We saw obviously the other day Tyson Alualu saying, he's coming back. That's going to be a huge boost. Again, we could see what this defensive line and the ripple effect into the backfield, into the secondary, what it could be. So it's obviously a huge need in terms of how they're going to fare. But I obviously, with how free agency works, it's going to be intriguing to see what the Steelers do. When we talked with Witherspoon on Thursday, he hadn't had his exit meeting with head coach Mike Tomlin yet. So that's going to be intriguing too, just to kind of see how he felt about it. Because again, he seemed like he really enjoyed it here. But again, if money calls and you can go to a really competitive defense that's going to pay you $5 million more a year than what the team you're currently on is offering you, why wouldn't you take that?
Yeah. That's just a position that you have to take advantage of the opportunity when it's there. So I totally feel that. That's going to be something that we explore for the next couple months as we head into free agency here. We're not done talking about that throughout the offseason. But I want to talk to Jenna about Pressley Harvin, the Steelers punter, who he came back in the playoff game, and all things aside, he had a really good game punting the ball, and the Steelers needed him to keep themselves in it early. But there's a lot to his story and a lot to that situation that I think needs to be combed over more. We're going to do that in just a minute here. But first, I got to talk to you guys about Get Upside. Hey, Steelers fans, this is Chris Carr with an incredible app that everyone who buys gas needs to know about. It's called Get Upside. My listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or on Google Play right now. Be sure to use the promo code TOUCHDOWN, and you get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $200 or $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back gets added right to your account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code TOUCHDOWN to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Again, that's promo code TOUCHDOWN on the Get Upside app. We're also brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue the march through the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action of 2022. In the new year, there's a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today, and you'll receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just be sure to use the promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON, locked on, and you'll get started on betonline.ag. From football to basketball to hockey to boxing to UFC, right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022 on BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, and BetOnline, where the game starts. And Jenna, we do back-to-back ad reads. We keep it rolling here. Now, let's talk about some Pressley Harvin, because his story touched a lot of people, and the Steelers kept it covered up for quite some time. They didn't let him until he posted it on Instagram, what he was going through. But the Steelers, drafted Pressley Harvin in the 7th round. He had some not good games. He had been, saying he was in the bottom percentile of punters in the NFL as far as his production this year. And then it was revealed that his father was dying from a terminal illness throughout the season, and he was able to come to I forget which home game it was. I want to say it was the Titans game.
It was the Titans game, yeah.
It was the Titans game. The Steelers got to set it up so that him and the family would be there to see Pressley Harvin in that Titans game, and that was shortly afterwards he died, and that was a sad story. And then 2 weeks later, Pressley Harvin's grandmother dies. And Pressley Harvin stepped away from the team for a couple weeks. They had Corliss Waitman come in, and Corliss Waitman punted well. He punted 52.7 yards per punt on 7 punts for the Steelers this past season. But when Pressley Harvin came back, Mike Tomlin said, hey, we're not going to limit ourselves to one punter or the other. We're just going to see how it goes. And they trusted Pressley Harvin III to go in there, punt the ball in the playoffs against the Chiefs. And he had 7 punts that averaged 49.7 yards per punt. I thought he did a good job.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good story, but there were still some people like, hey, they still shouldn't have brought him back. They should have stuck with Corliss Waitman. But Jenna, when you hear all the stories about Pressley Harvin, it just makes you think, where's the empathy for people going through this kind of stuff? Because he talked about his mental health was in a really tough place when he was losing 2 very close family members.
Yeah. And I'm going to try and not get emotional because it has been when we talked with him on Zoom and he kind of gave us so much incredible insight. Like, I really encourage everybody to listen to that full interview because you can just see all that this 23-year-old kid, I think we have to remember that. And sometimes it's so hard because we look at NFL players and we're like, oh, you're this athlete we put on a pedestal that is this superhuman. They have these superhuman abilities. They're some of the best athletes in the world. We tend to forget sometimes that they're actual normal human beings too. They have the same feelings. They have the same grief. They have all of that.
Yep.
And my biggest thing was, there were a lot of people criticizing him. And it was understandable at times because of his performance. But then it's like, look a little bit deeper here because, again, he put it out in the public that his father was dealing with a terminal illness. And this isn't something, you find out, your dad is cancer and then 2 weeks later he passes away. Like, this is a long sustained thing. This is something that he was dealing with for a while. We don't know how long. I'm not going to sit here and speculate, but this is more than just, or getting a phone call that someone you knew passed away in a car crash. Like, this is something you're kind of,
it weighs on you.
For absolutely. So not only is he dealing with that, he's a rookie, he's going through all of this. And then, so his dad passes away and then his grandmother passes away 2 weeks later. I mean, I can't imagine the toll that would take on anybody, let alone a punter in the NFL, a rookie punter who's in a new city by himself for an entirely, he's been here. It's so new. All of it is to him. He's dealing with everything. And also, not to mention that the punter is one of the most mental positions on a football team. You have to have a tough mentality. Yes, it is in football, but again, these are real people, and we need to remember that. And you could just see it was incredible the way that Harvin was talking with all of us, but you can just see, what he was going through. And, I asked him, I said, you talk about mental toughness, you talk about having mental toughness and it being a big thing. And you really dove into what it means to be mentally tough. What was the biggest thing you learned this off season about yourself? And he said, he looked us all dead in the face and said, sometimes it's okay to not be okay. And that was an incredible line. You and I talked about that before we started recording here, but mental health is such a big thing, and I'll go on and on and on about that. It doesn't, athletes aren't exempt from mental health because they're athletes and they're making millions of dollars and they're supposed to be these, I'm tough, they go through grief too. You can tell I got a lot of
keep going. This is great because here's the thing: we whenever it's time to talk up, whenever it's popular to talk about when Simone Biles makes her stand at the Olympics, when Trey Tipton, the Pitt wide receiver, talks about mental health issues, and people want to say, "Oh yeah, we're so supportive of this," but then when a punter's having a rough time, and then again, criticism of in-game play, totally reasonable. He wasn't punting well, and there were certainly real questions about that. But when it was revealed what he was going through, and people were still being like, this guy's done. He'll never be good in the NFL. I'm like, what are you looking at? How would you like it if you in your job, you had a rough day, you lost 2 close family members, you had a rough time at your job during that time, and then you were judged and said you should never be able to work in your career again because of those moments? That would be unfair. And yes, the NFL is an unfair business. It's performance based, and it's a what have you done for me lately league. But the Steelers know that guy was the first black punter to ever win the Ray Guy Award. I watched him boom punts at Georgia Tech. They know that he has something in him that they want to draw out, which is why they've stuck with him. And it was also, I thought was really interesting, Harvin also talked about how him and Corliss Waitman were the only 2 active black NFL punters in the league, both on the same roster. Now, Waitman has since joined the Broncos since being let go by the Steelers because they needed to get Juju on the roster. But that there's a lot of pressure there. I think that people don't think about, and then you deal with this with the family issues. Those are significant things that can't be overlooked.
And one of the most incredible things too, when we were talking with Harvin on Thursday, he was giving Waitman the utmost praise.
Mhm.
He was so over the moon. It was honestly incredible. I was kind of sitting there wide-eyed because you expect, oh, I want a good competition. I want someone to push. He could not have spoken higher of Corliss Waitman. And it was one of those things where you're like, you really want to root for this guy. You really want to root for Pressley Harvin III because of just the way he carries himself. And he even said, what Noah Strackbean asked him, about what his plans for the offseason were. And he goes, I'm ready to go kick in all types of weather. He's like, I want to get better. It's not like, and he even admitted too, he's like, I knew I wasn't playing well. That's just the reality of what he was dealing with. And again, I'm not trying to sit here and make excuses. There are things that he needs to improve upon that he says he needs to improve upon. But at the same time, when you're going through something as mentally tough as that, and you're dealing with so much, not to mention, I think also a lot of people maybe forgetting that, hey, we're kind of still dealing with a little bit of a global pandemic.
Yes, there's that too.
All of us. Yeah. So, but I mean, it was really inspirational. I really do encourage a lot of people to kind of go and just listen to what Harvin said and just how he spoke. And we express our sincere condolences to him. I mean, I physically just can't imagine what that was like, and for him to perform the way he performed in Kansas City. Also, not to mention, his grandmother passed away the night before the Ravens game. He told us the night before, and he's like, there was a decision to make Sunday morning. And I said, I wanted to go out there because I wanted to be able to show people that adversity affects you, but you can still get through it. You can still, if that right there isn't mental toughness, I don't know what is.
It's a great point. And I think that it's something that people overlook too much because they just want to see their team win. They don't understand why such and such player isn't doing well, and that becomes an issue. And I think that people forget the humanity that needs to be involved when you're looking at these people are human beings. And for Pressley Harvin, and look, this isn't saying that if Pressley Harvin comes back and stinks next year that they need to keep him on the team and let him continue to stink. This is saying, you know what, hey, maybe there's something going on there, because this guy was an amazing college punter, the best college punter in the country last year, and then there were times this year where things worked. There's times this year when things didn't. And then and the thing is, the Steelers, they know what's going on. They know it. They weren't going to reveal it because that's his private business. It's not our business to know that his father was terminally ill, his grandmother wasn't doing well, and those things were happening. And then when we find, and so I understand people saying, hey, he wasn't doing well. I'm not saying that I hope I don't care about his dad. I'm just saying I want the Steelers to have a good punter, and I get that. But there's times to weigh that with the decision. When it's like, okay, you knew the situation. What was that? Now you need to understand. I think even outside of emotional things, you don't know what somebody's going through physically. There's sometimes an injury. In 2018, Chris Boswell had the worst year of his career. People were talking about cutting him in Pittsburgh, and I'm looking like, are you crazy? This guy has been the most consistent kicker in football, and for 1 year he had a rough time. Let's see if he can rebound for that. And then here he is again. It's him and Justin Tucker as the best kickers in the NFL, for the past 3 years, or 6 years, however long it's been since 2018, or I guess it's 3 years. But point being, Pressley Harvin deserves another shot. And should they have kept Corliss Waitman? I think they should have tried to find a way, because I think having both of them compete in camp would have been great. And then it would have been if Corliss Waitman wins it, then great. And you know who it is. Pressley Harvin will catch on somewhere else. But for Pressley Harvin, I do not think it just means you automatically cut him or you just throw him to the side because he had rough times while he was going through rough times.
Yeah. And one little quick aside, because I just checked, I tweeted a video of him earlier, and it's a good thing when when all people are tweeting are positive things.
Yeah.
The comments on this tweet are, props to him for hanging in there. He was one of the few bright spots in the KC fiasco. He had a very difficult time, but I believe he'll turn it around this off season. Salute to you, Pressley Harvin. Keep doing your thing. It's okay to not be okay. When the internet is reacting that way, that's all I'm saying.
Hey, there's something going on there. Dana, it's an amazing story. We hope to see more from Pressley Harvin in the coming years. We hope to see him rebound. I mean, if he can become a good punter for the Steelers in the next few years, he'll be one of the best stories, I think, in the NFL. As a very rare black punter, but also a person who has overcome serious grief. And again, people suffer grief their own way. Someone might bring up, well, Brett Favre played the day after his dad died. You know what? Some people grieve, work through their pain and their grief, by working through it. Some people work through by grieving through it and being with their families. I don't judge people for either way. That being said, we got to move on. We got to talk about the games this weekend. We will get back to Pressley Harvin at some point during this offseason. I'm sure that'll be something that gets talked about. But first, before we get into some games, I got to talk to you guys about Built Bar. It's the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar and maybe even better than a candy bar. Built Bar makes it easier for you to stick to your New Year's resolution because it tastes so good you'll want to eat it, unlike other protein bars that can be chalky, waxy, or taste like a chemical spill. You want to eat healthy, but it just gets so boring. By week 3, you're sitting there thinking, this isn't worth it. Where's the chocolate? Well, Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Most Built Bars contain just 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 4 net carbs, and they pack 17 grams of protein. You compare that to the average candy bar that has 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. That's a much healthier option. So go find all the places you stashed all your snacks and your unhealthy treats, throw them all out, replace them with Built Bars. You can find all the amazing flavors that you can love at built.com that you can replace them with. And those flavors range from coconut almond to peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, and so many more. So be sure to go to built.com right now, and you can get your special offer from built.com by using locked15. That's LOCKED15 locked15. You'll get 15% off your next order at built.com. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm Chris Carter here with Jenna Harner on a Jenna Harner Friday here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Jenna, let's get to the picks because last week was interesting. Actually, let's revisit. I think did we split last week at all? Because we both picked the Chiefs. I forget who you picked last week, because I had the two ones that I got wrong. I thought the Cowboys would beat the Niners, and I thought you picked the Cardinals. That was the one. I picked the Rams. I think you picked the Cardinals.
Yep.
I think that was the only one that we split on. So there's that.
Yep.
So I'm up a game on you in the playoffs.
Bring it.
There we are. Here we go. It's the divisional round, which means we get 4 games, which means we have 7 more football games this year. We have these 4, 2 in the AFC and the NFC Championship games, and then the Super Bowl. Where does the time go, man? I'm gonna be hating the fact that there's no more football. But we got some great games this weekend, all of which will be, I think, ones that everyone needs to tune into. First, Saturday, 4:30 p.m., the AFC North champions Cincinnati Bengals roll into town after beating the Las Vegas Raiders last week, but they face the 1 seed Tennessee Titans, who maybe they get Derrick Henry back. We're still waiting to see if he officially gets the start on the weekend and what actually happens there, but they're hoping that he does. This has been a team, Jenna, that the Titans, they've had a really strong year. Of course, winning the 1 seed, they won 4 of their last 5. The only team that they lost to in their last 5 games coming out of the bye week was the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is going to be an interesting matchup here. Ryan Tannehill, he's managed to keep things together, but this defense has also played very well. This is going to be an interesting matchup for Joe Burrow, who's going to be facing a secondary that has experienced guys like Kevin Byard that are going to be trying to pick him off in this game. Jamar Chase is going to be going up against cornerbacks that I think that he can take advantage of, but the Titans also, they bring the heat in the pass rush. They got Bud Dupree, they've got Jeffrey Simmons. They're going to be getting after Joe Burrow, and he got sacked 51 times this year. I'm going with the home team. I'm saying the Titans win this game. It's going to be close, but I think that they find a way to win, and they come out on top over the Bengals, who they got their playoff win. They snapped their 31-year streak of not having a playoff win, but I think the Titans, they're going to be heading to the AFC Championship game, and they'll host it.
I am really intrigued. I'm not going to lie. This is a really intriguing one to me. I'm going with the Bengals. So we're starting off with a little split.
All right.
For it. And it is going to come down to Joe Burrow. But I think that there isn't this stress for this team anymore of, oh my God, we have to get this playoff win. Oh my God, what are people going to say about us? Now they're just kind of playing loose. Now we get to go, they get to go in Tennessee. They get to show what they can do, what they've done all season. And it is going to come down to if that offensive line can protect Burrow. If they can hold up against the pass rush and give Joe Burrow the time to hit Jamar Chase deep, all of a sudden that game changes entirely. I think the Bengals just have a more explosive offense. If I have to pick a quarterback that I trust more, I am going with Joe Burrow over Ryan Tannehill right now, which, believe it or not, is crazy to say because Burrow's just in his second season and he missed a decent chunk of last year. But I'm going with the Bengals. Let's do it.
Now, according to ESPN, Derrick Henry did pass the contact test and to be at practice this week. So that could be a factor here because I agree. If Derrick Henry is definitely out, I'm going to be, I'm gonna be intrigued to see it. Mike Vrabel said the Titans still have to decide on his status, but if Derrick Henry plays, I think that changes a lot. I think that the Bengals would have a hard time dealing with him, and I think that the Bengals would struggle, and the Titans would be a team that could take advantage of that situation. But that being said, there's our first split. Let's go to the NFC. Jenna, the Niners are playing the Packers. The Niners they've been on an improbable run to get where they are. They were down 17 points to the Rams back in week 18. If they had lost that game, the Saints would have been in the playoffs. Then they go on the road to play a Cowboys team that had been playing well this season with Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons, Ezekiel Elliott, CeeDee Lamb, all those players. And they gutted out a tough win in a controversial ending that was all over the news. Now they go into Lambeau Field, all the way across the country to the Midwest to the upper north. It's going to be cold. It's going to be freezing. The Packers are coming off the bye week and they've got Devontae Adams. I'm going with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, but here's the kicker here, Jenna. Lifetime Ben Roethlisberger. This is what happens when you cover the Steelers all the time. You start saying all their names. Aaron Rodgers is 0-3 lifetime versus the Niners in the playoffs. They have had his number. It's been different times, different quarterbacks, Alex Smith or Colin Kaepernick or Jimmy Garoppolo last year, the year they went to the Super Bowl. But this has to be the year. This has to be the year that he puts that to bed and that they work their way to the Super Bowl. I think the Packers are much better suited to deal with it. But what say you?
Yeah, I'm going with the Packers in this one. And I think one of the reasons why, obviously we know they're an explosive team. We know, you look on paper, I think no doubt they are the better team, but they played a decent amount of their starters for that first half game against in the regular season finale against the Lions when they didn't have to, because they don't want to be rusty. Look at what happened. Was it last year or 2 years ago when they had the 1 seed and then they lost in the first round or the divisional round? I just think that they have too many weapons. They finally have a multifaceted offense where you got a run game and the pass game. It isn't just Aaron Rodgers slinging the ball 45 times a game. They have that run game ability with Aaron Jones. Their defense really has put things together too. And Jimmy Garoppolo, I believe, I want to say the last time I checked was Wednesday, he is dealing with that thumb injury, I believe, and he's going to play, but he's not reportedly 100%. And I think that factors in huge as well.
No, yeah, it does factor in. And even though Jimmy Garoppolo isn't the superstar quarterback, he's not the Aaron Rodgers there. He has been a good manager for this Niners team that lives off a ground game, that lives off a defense, and he takes advantage of what's there. So his health is going to be important to this game, but ultimately I still think it comes down to, like you said, it's going to the Aaron Rodgers. He has that game. I think also Devontae Adams. He is the nightmare that to the Niners. He's the kryptonite to what the Niners do on defense. They don't have the corners to run with him, and I think that's going to be a major problem going into this game. Now, for the Sunday games, 3:00 kicking off, it's the Rams at the Buccaneers. Both of these teams won last week to get to this part of the playoffs. The Rams won pretty convincingly. Well, both teams actually won pretty convincingly in their games. The Rams put away the Cardinals fast to show they were the better NFC West team, and the Buccaneers, they beat up on the Eagles. But this is an interesting situation because you're dealing with Tom Brady, who, next year he turns 45, and then he always said he wants to play until he's 45. And the Buccaneers are hurt up. Their offensive line is going through it. No Chris Godwin, no Antonio Brown. They've done a phenomenal job dealing with those injuries. But this is a Rams team now that they're starting to feel it. You look at the way they played. They beat up on the Cardinals 34-11. They lost to the Niners 27-24 in week 18. But before that, they were on a 5-game win streak. So they've won now 6 of their last 7 games, and their only loss was to a divisional opponent. They have their pass rush, their defensive front is going to, I think, cause too much havoc for Tom Brady. Aaron Donald's going to be getting up in his face, and we all know Tom Brady does not deal with internal pressure up the middle well. That's the key factor for me. I say that the Rams find a way to win this one.
I was going to say, that's how you beat Tom Brady in the playoffs right there. You get in his face, you pressure him. He hates it. He doesn't enjoy that at all. And with a really banged up offensive line, that bodes really well for that defensive rush from the Rams. I also just think the Rams have really kind of caught fire at the right time. Again, they've won 6 of their last 7.
Yep.
OBJ is finally getting things going.
And Cooper Kupp is just phenomenal. He's the best receiver in football.
It's ridiculous. I mean, that offense is just so high powered. I'm going to be really in my mind, ideally, I would love to see Packers Rams just because let's get the ball thrown a million times. And
that would be fun.
That will be really fun. Hey, maybe we'll get there. Who knows? But I'm going with you. I'm picking the Rams in this one. It's so hard to pick against Tom Brady in the playoffs. And if they had a fully healthy offensive line and he had that full complement of a receiving core, then I'd be like, this one's a lot more difficult. I'm not saying that, it isn't going to be close because, again, you can never count out Tom Brady in the playoffs. But I just think the explosiveness that the Rams offense provides and that pass rush on the defense, it's going to be fun.
It's going to be a fun one. Now, to me, this last one is the most fun game. This is the one I'm the most excited about. You got 2 premier quarterbacks getting ready to duke it out. They're in their prime. They've got talented players all around them. The Buffalo Bills head into Kansas City to play the Chiefs. The Chiefs, of course, coming off beating the Steelers. The Bills, of course, coming off beating the Patriots. This is going to be an exciting game, I think, from beginning to end. These 2 teams played each other in the AFC Championship game last year, and I said that going into that game, I just thought Kansas City was the more mature team. They knew how to deal with it. That was the first time the Bills had really had some juice, and you saw the Bills in that game. They went up 9-0, and then they allowed the Chiefs to go on a 21-point run that just buried them, and they were able to make it close, but you saw them falter and get frustrated late. This year, I do think it's different. Josh Allen's more prepared. Stephon Diggs has dealt with this. The defense playing well. Their safeties are playing phenomenally. I really think this is the year, Jenna, that the Bills actually do it and knock off the Chiefs. I think also the Chiefs, they're playing the number 1 defense in the league this year. The Bills were the number 1 defense, even without Tre'Davious White, to finish the season. This is a huge turn for the Bills. If they can knock the Chiefs off their rocker the way the Steelers did in the first quarter, but they put up points unlike the Steelers did, I think the Chiefs go into a much worse hole, and there's a lot more pressure on them, and that leads to a victory for the Bills in the end.
I saw a tweet the other day that said that Allen and Mahomes is the modern day Brady Manning, and it could be. This is gonna be a fun rivalry for years to come, no doubt about it. But I think the Bills are going to win this game for all the reasons you mentioned. I mean, can we talk about that Micah Hyde interception? That was we're in Kansas City. We're at Joe's Barbecue. It's this gas station barbecue restaurant. Amazing. I know they're not a sponsor, but come on. If you're in Kansas City, you should go there, no doubt. But everyone in the restaurant was just like, oh my God, what just happened? Nobody knew. And that was a ridiculous pass from Mac Jones. It wasn't a bad ball at all. That was just one of those, oh my goodness, don't throw over the middle on this defense. I just think that the way the Bills exercised every demon imaginable they had last week, the confidence that gives them going into this week is monumental. I think if they'd come off a close game or, they were down and they had to claw their way back in, and I think this might be different, but that was just an absolute beat down against a very solid defense. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Patriots defense is a lot better than the Chiefs defense.
I believe the Patriots scoring wise were number 2 to the Bills being number 1.
To the Bills number 1. So it was the top 2 scoring defense in the league, and you did They had a perfect game. That was the baseball equivalent of a perfect game, or football equivalent of a perfect game. You know what I mean? We're going baseball. We're just moving right on from football, apparently. My long-winded answer here is I think the Bills win. I think this is going to be a very interesting game. It's going to take one splash play in the beginning, and then the Bills really find their groove. And there's the picture kind of circulating on social media where Stephon Diggs was just kind of sitting there with his hands on his helmet, watching the celebration for the Chiefs. And he said, he remembers this. This Bills team remembers that. And this is a Bills team that has a stronger defense. And this is a Chiefs team that has a weaker defense than that game, the AFC Championship game a year ago. I'm going with the Bills, but this is going to be a fun one.
It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun weekend. These are all great matchups. I think everyone's excited to see what kind of games these are. So I believe our only split for the weekend is you have the Bengals, I have the Titans. We have agreed on the Rams beating the Bucks, the Packers beating the Niners, and the Bills beating the Chiefs. Let us know who you picked. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at Carter Critiques. Jenna is at Jenna Hunter 11. You can find. I'll be tweeting out this show. So if you find that link, drop your predictions and tell us where we're wrong or where we're right if you agree with us there. Also, just share the show. We always appreciate anyone who does on social media. Jenna, we thank you so much for showing up every Friday and doing all this. It's always a great time. Thanks for joining us again. Let people know can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Chris, this is my favorite part about Fridays. What's not to love? We have fun. We have fun here. You can find me on Twitter at Jenna Harner 11, Instagram, Jenna_Harner. I think it's Jenna Harner or something. Just search Jenna Harner. You'll find it. But yeah, tweet at us. Seriously, now that football season's over, I get my Sundays back. So I'm going to cozied up on the couch with some chocolate food going on, watching these games. So this is going to be a fun weekend for sure.
It's going to be a fun one. Jenna, thank you so much for joining us here. We look forward to having you again next week right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, previewing the AFC and NFC championship games. I'm Chris Carter, the Locked On Steelers podcast. Thanks so much for watching this show or listening to this show. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey. If you're watching the video on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get all our great content. Give us a 5-star review on Apple with a positive comment, and you get a shout out at the end of the show. That's it for the week. We'll be back on Monday. We'll probably recap some football, see what the biggest results were, and then we'll be talking to you more about what's going on with the Steelers, getting you ready as they continue to work their way into the offseason.